Superman is an upcoming American superhero film based on DC Comics featuring the eponymous character. Produced by DC Studios and to be distributed by Warner Bros. Pictures, it will be the first film in the DC Universe, DCU, and a reboot of the Superman film series. The film is written and directed by James Gunn and stars David Corenswet as Clark Kent/Superman, alongside Rachel Brosnahan, Isabela Merced, Edi Gathegi, Nathan Fillion, Anthony Carrigan, Maria Gabriela de Faria, Sarah Sampaio, Skyla Gisondo, Nicholas Hoult, Terrence Rosemore, Wendell Pierce, Pruitt Taylor Vince, Neva Howell, Beck Bennett, Michaela Hoover, and Christopher McDonald. In the film, Superman's journey to reconcile his alien heritage with his human family is explored. Development on a sequel to the first DC Extended Universe, DCEU, film, Man of Steel, 2013, began by October 2014, with Henry Cavill expected to reprise his role as Superman. Plans changed after the troubled production of Justice League, 2017, and the Man of Steel sequel was no longer moving forward by May 2020. Gunn began work on a potential new Superman film around August 2022. In October, he became co-CEO of DC Studios with producer Peter Safran and they began work on a new DC universe. Gunn was publicly revealed to be writing the new Superman film in December. The title Superman Legacy was announced in January 2023, Gunn was confirmed to be directing in March, and Corenswet and Brosnahan were cast in June. The subtitle was dropped by the end of February 2024, when filming began in Norway. It is set to last until August at Trilith Studios in Atlanta and Macon, Georgia, as well as in Cleveland and Cincinnati, Ohio. The film takes specific inspiration from the comic book All-Star Superman, 2005 to 2008, by Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely, among others. Superman is scheduled to be released theatrically in the United States on July 11, 2025. It is set to be the first film of the DCU's Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters. Premise: the film explores Clark Kent/Superman's journey to reconcile his Kryptonian heritage with his adoptive human family in Smallville, Kansas. Background: Warner Bros. Pictures was planning in 2012 for the film Man of Steel, 2013, based on the DC Comics character Superman, to start a shared universe, which became known as the DC Extended Universe, DCEU. They announced a full slate of DC films in October 2014, prioritizing Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, 2016, as the second DCEU film after Man of Steel failed to meet the studio's financial expectations. Despite this, they said an undated sequel to Man of Steel was in development with Henry Cavill set to reprise his role as Clark Kent/Superman. Man of Steel director Zack Snyder said they had been considering the imprisoned Kryptonians from the first film and the character Brainiac as antagonists for the sequel before work began on Batman v Superman. A Man of Steel sequel was in active development as a top priority for the studio in August 2016, which Cavill's manager Danny Garcia confirmed the following month. Amy Adams, who portrayed Lois Lane in Man of Steel, said in November that the studio was working on the screenplay. Matthew Vaughn was Warner Bros.' top choice to direct the film and had preliminary conversations about it by March 2017. Vaughn and comic book writer Mark Millar had previously pitched a new Superman trilogy prior to the development of Man of Steel, in which the destruction of the planet Krypton would not occur until after Superman had already grown up on the planet. After the troubled production of the DCEU film Justice League, 2017, Warner Bros. Rethought its approach to DC projects. By the end of 2017, a Man of Steel sequel was not coming anytime soon, if at all. Justice League producer Charles Roven said story ideas had been discussed but there was no script. Before the release of Mission Impossible: Fallout in July 2018, director Christopher McQuarrie and co-star Cavill pitched their take on a new Superman film, but Warner Bros. Did not pursue the idea. 42 later in 2018, the studio asked James Gunn to write and direct a Superman film. but he was uncertain if he wanted to take on the character 4344. He did not have a clear vision for such a film, especially since Superman was a well-known character unlike the Guardians of the Galaxy who he had adapted for Marvel Studios in the film Guardians of the Galaxy, 2014. Gunn chose to make The Suicide Squad, 2021, instead. In September, negotiations for Cavill to reprise his role for a cameo appearance in Shazam 2019 ended due to contract issues as well as a scheduling conflict with Cavill's Fallout commitments. The actor was reported to be parting ways with the studio, with no plans for him to reprise his role in future projects, but Cavill said in November 2019 that he had not given up on the character and still wanted to do the role justice. At that time, Warner Brothers was unsure which direction to take the character and was talking to a high-profile talent about the property, including J.J. Abrams, whose company Bad Robot signed an overall deal with Warner Brothers' parent company Warner Media, and Michael B. Jordan, who pitched himself as a black version of the character 48. By May 2020, Warner Brothers was no longer developing a Man of Steel sequel, but Cavill was in talks to appear in a different future DC film. In February 2021, Ta-Nehisi Coates was revealed to be writing a new Superman film that Abrams was producing. 51. The film was expected to feature a black actor portraying Superman, with the potential for Jordan to take on the role. 52. Development. In April 2022, Discovery Incorporated and Warner Media merged to become Warner Brothers Discovery, WBD, led by President and CEO David Zaslav. The new company was expected to restructure DC Entertainment, and Zaslav began searching for an equivalent to Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige to lead the new subsidiary. Zaslav and WBD felt DC lacked a coherent creative and brand strategy and were underusing Superman 53. James Gunn was hired around late August to work on a Superman film that was not a sequel to Man of Steel and would be standalone from the DCEU. 54-55. Zaslav spent time with Gunn while he was writing the script. 56. In October, Cavill made a cameo appearance in the post-credits scene of the DCEU film Black Adam, 2022, and Warner Brothers was reportedly pursuing a Cavill-led Man of Steel sequel. Once again, Rogan was producing and the studio was searching for writers. They wanted Cory to direct, but he was unlikely to be available due to his commitments to Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1, 2023, and an untitled 8th Mission Impossible film, 2025. Abrams's and Coates' film was still in development. Cavill's role in Black Adam was approved by Warner Brothers film chiefs Michael DeLuca and Pamela Abdi when they were approached directly by Black Adam star Dwayne Johnson. Johnson began promoting the idea of a Black Adam vs. Superman film co-starring Cavill. 57. The latter had signed a one-off deal for Black Adam and only received a verbal agreement that he would continue playing the character in the DCEU. Cavill publicly announced that he would return as Superman for future projects, and said his Black Adam cameo was a very small taste of future plans. He said Superman would be enormously joyful moving forward. Stephen Knight wrote the script treatment for the sequel around that time, which reportedly included Brainiac as the antagonist. 59. But Warner Brothers executives were not dialed with his take. James Gunn and the Suicide Squad producer Peter Safran were announced as the co-chairs and co-CEOs of the newly formed DC Studios at the end of October 2022. A week after starting their new roles, the pair had begun developing an 8 to 10 year plan for a new DC universe, DCU, that would be a soft reboot of the DCEU. In mid-November, Gunn was publicly revealed to be writing a new DC film. Andy Muschietti, director of the DCEU film The Flash, 2023, expressed interest in directing a Superman project with a similar tone to Richard Donner's Superman, 1978. In early November, Cavill expressed interest in a future project that explored Superman's capacity to give and to love the people of Earth and to inspire others, and said he was looking forward to meeting with Gunn to discuss future opportunities. Work on the Man of Steel sequel stalled later that month while Gunn and Safran were developing their plans. In December 2022, Gunn said Superman was a big priority, if not the biggest, for DC Studios, before publicly announcing that he was writing a new Superman film that would focus on a younger version of the character and would therefore not star Cavill. There was potential for Gunn to also direct the film. It would not be an origin story for Superman, and would focus on him as a young reporter interacting with key characters, such as Lois Lane. Gunn and Safran met with Cavill to explain their decision and discuss potentially working with him for a different role in the future. On January 31, 2023, Gunn and Safran unveiled the first projects from their DCU slate, which begins with Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters. Their Superman film was the first film in that chapter and was officially titled Superman, Legacy. It was given a release date of July 11, 2025. Safran wanted Gunn to direct the film. Gunn said the film would take specific inspiration from the comic book All-Star Superman, 2005 to 2008, by Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely, and the next day that comic appeared on Amazon's list of best-selling comic books. The film was also inspired by the animated Superman short films from Fleischer Studios, 1941 to 1943, and by these comic books, The Superman, Birthright, 2003-04, limited series by Mark Waid, Lionel Francis Yu, and Gary Alangwillan, the 2008 Brainiac story arc from Action Comics by Jeff Johns and Gary Frank, the crossover event Superman, Ending Battle, 2002, by Johns, Joe Casey, Joe Kelly, and Mark Schultz, The Superman for All Seasons, 1998, limited series by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, The Elseworlds limited series Kingdom Come, 1996, by Wade and Alex Ross, Morrison's Action Comics run, and the story Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, 1986, by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons. Tom King, a comic book writer working on the DCU, stated in March 2023 that Gunn was also directing the film, which Gunn confirmed later that month. At that time, Safran was confirmed to be producing the film. Gunn was hesitant to direct the film, despite encouragement from Safran and others, until he realized how focusing on Superman's heritage with his aristocratic Kryptonian parents and adopted farmer parents from Smallville, Kansas, would inform the characterization. Gunn felt emotionally connected to this aspect of the film because of his late father, whose birthday was shared with the film's intended release date. Gunn said in April that the film's tone would differ from his Guardians of the Galaxy films, and he suggested that Superman's dog Krypto could appear. Production design, costume design, and the casting process began in April 2023. Beth Mickle and Judianna Makovsky returned in their respective roles as production designer and costume designer from the Suicide Squad and Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, 2023. Filming was set to begin in January 2024. Gunn was looking for an actor to play Superman who possessed the character's humanity, kindness, and compassion, and was somebody who you want to give a hug. He said the character Jimmy Olsen would appear and that he was not looking to make the film a comedy. He hoped Legacy would be different from previous Superman films while still respecting what came before. Gunn turned in the first draft of the script at the end of April, and the production was not expected to be impacted by the 2023 Writers Guild of America strike when it began in early May. Audition tapes for the main roles of Superman, Lois Lane, and Lex Luthor were submitted by early May 2023. Gunn began watching them later that month, while he was storyboarding the film. David Corenswet was a top contender for Superman and was set to do a screen test at the end of the month or in early June. Other actors in consideration included Jacob Elordi, Tom Brittney, and Andrew Richardson. Elordi declined to read for the role, feeling that it would be too much and too dark for him. Emma Mackey, Rachel Brosnahan, Samara Weaving, and Edi Dynevor had tested for Lane. Dynevor was one of the final contenders for that role. Nicholas Hoult, the runner-up to play Batman in the Batman 2022, was eyed for Luthor but chose to pursue the role of Superman 94. Gunn was considering A-list actors with whom he had previously worked for Luthor, and discussed the role with a Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 actor that was reported to be Bradley Cooper. Black actors were also being considered. Testing took place using the label Apex, a reference to a comic version of Luthor called Apexer.